Hi, this is Mashnu, and here is a game from round 7 of the Chess Olympiad. I've chosen for a game between Fabiano Caruana from Italy, a very strong grandmaster, rated 2773 at the moment. He's, I believe, on place number 8 of the world. And he's playing against Grandmaster Vladimir Georgiev from Macedonia, rated 2566. And in this game we see actually a fight between two knights against two bishops, and that's always a very interesting thing in what kind of positions are knights stronger than bishops. And we can have a look at that. It's not a very, well, perhaps not a very easy game to explain, but I'll do my best to make things a bit clear. e4, e5, we have the Spanish opening here. a6, bishop to a4, knight to f6, attacking the e4 pawn, and white castles kingside here. So yes, he leaves the e4 pawn undefended, but this is theory. If black takes on e4, we have the so-called open Spanish that was, I believe, played by Korchnoi in the match Karpov Korchnoi. This opening was played, and I'm not sure whether Korchnoi played this with black or with white, but anyway, knight takes e4 is a common move. d4 mostly then follows, and then b5, the bishop goes to b3, and now d5, controlling the center, and after d takes e5, now already white has regained this this pawn that he lost on e4. But well, let's not go too much into the theory, because that's something that you can do for yourself if you Google on Spanish open Spanish, or buy a book about it. So here black played b5, bishop goes to b3, and now bishop to b7. Now this combination of a pawn on e5 and a bishop on b7 always leaves the square f5 a bit weak. That's one disadvantage of this. The advantage, of course, is that this bishop is targeting the same pawn as the knight on f6, so this can be a point of attack later. Now d3 supporting e4, bishop to e7, preparing to castle kingside, and white plays a4, challenging these advanced pawns on the queenside. Castle kingside, rook to e1. Now this is also something that may look a bit strange if you haven't seen this before. Why is white placing the rook on e1 while his pawn is on e4? Well, the idea is to give some extra support to this pawn, so then later eventually white can open the center with d3 without leaving this this e4 pawn undefended. Now d6 played by black, and the knight from b1 goes to d2. The plan of this knight to d2, well, it's actually two things. One is that white wants to go to f1 and then to g3 or e3, and from there it can control these two important squares, f5 and d5. The other idea of knight to d2 is that this pawn is not being blocked, so eventually c3 followed by d4, those kind of maneuvers are possible. Now black played here knight to a5, wanting to trade this bishop on b3. White doesn't want to allow that, so bishop to a2. Now c5, gaining space on the queen side. Knight to f1 as planned, and now b4 by black. Knight to e3, and black plays here b3. So black is sacrificing this pawn on b3, and white has a choice now. Actually, well, let's say three moves. Pawn takes b3, bishop takes b3, and bishop to b1. Those are the three options. Well, the idea is that if white takes here with the pawn, c takes b3, then this bishop is locked in. It's very difficult to free this bishop now and bring it into activity. So here, for example, knight to c6 is strong, preventing this this b4 advance. This knight is controlling b4. So those are the disadvantages of c takes b3. The other option of playing the bishop to b1, well, is actually very passive. Here b takes c2 is already a good move. After bishop takes c2, black can start placing his pieces on this b file to attack the b2 pawn, and also trying to control this b3 square. So this is not a very easy task for white to play this position. This bishop is not well placed here, looking at its own pawn and only defending this b3 square. So bishop to b1 is not an option, and white played here the move bishop takes b3. Of course, then we allow black to capture this bishop, to trade it, and that's what black wanted. So knight takes b3, c takes b3 now, and here we have with white a double pawn, and black has the pair of bishops. But the question is whether this pair of bishops is active enough. At the moment we see a very passive bishop on e7, and the two knights of white can quite easily be brought into play. For example, knight to c4 or knight to d2 and then to c4, the other knight. They can play together. Also, this dark square bishop that looks passive at the moment is a potential good bishop because of the black pawns over there. My phone is ringing, I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so we left at c2 takes b3, and at this moment the plan for black is to attack the b3 pawn, because this has become weak now. Now how can this be done? By moving the rook to b8 and then rerouting the bishop to c8 and e6. So then we have two pieces attacking the b3 pawn. Eventually it can be supported by placing the queen also on this b file. The game continued with bishop to c8. The idea is of course to go to e6, and white saw now that without this bishop on b7, the c6 square becomes something to use for white. So he plays knight to c4. Possible plan to, well, not let me put it like this, play bishop to d2 to support a5, and then eventually going to a5 with the knight, and later to c6. Now this looks as if this knight here on c6 will be not supported, so it doesn't make much sense. So we have to add something to this plan, and what we need to add with white is to open the c file. Have a look at how this happened. It's very, very interesting to see. Rook to b8 by black, bishop to d2, bishop to e6, all according to plan. Now the move h3. Now I must admit that I don't really understand this move. Mostly when I make a chess video, first I analyze the game. I'm sure that I understand every step, so I can explain it. But this time I really don't understand why it's necessary here to play h3. Perhaps white was preventing bishop to g4, this eventual pin on f3, or preventing knight to g4. I'm not sure. I don't think these are threats, but well, the player with white is rated 2773, so this is one of those mysterious decisions that top players understand and we we don't. But well, perhaps you have an idea. If you have an idea about why this h3 move is necessary in this position, then feel free to write it in the comments, and we can investigate together. Anyway, here black replied queen to c8. Does he want to take on h3, eventually a crazy sacrifice there? I don't think so. It doesn't look like there is enough power to attack there. Perhaps the idea is something different. Perhaps it is to bring a rook to d8 to be able to advance d5. We will see. Rook to c1 now by white, preparing to open the c file. queen to b7, bring the queen out of the c file, and attacking b3 one more time. And here white doesn't play knight to a5 to defend b3 and attack the queen. No, he plays a very beautiful move, the move b4. So white sacrifices now a pawn in order to open this b file. C takes b4 was played in the game, and white continues with knight to a5. Now the queen is under attack, the queen moves to d7, and now white pushes the pawn to d4. So we see that there is now a combination between opening the c file, wanting to use c6 as a strong square to place the knight, and also by advancing this pawn from d3 to d4 we have the option of, if black takes, to retake with the f knight from f3. So then these two knights that will be standing here will be supporting each other, and there will be no enemy pawn that can chase them away. So it's quite a deep plan, combining different motives that white is using. Here black took e takes d4, white played knight to c6, attacking the rook on b8, the rook goes to c8, and now knight f to d4, and white has a very good position now. Now the light pieces of white are much more active than the black pieces. The pawn on b4 is being attacked, the two knights are supporting each other. White's rooks are also more active than black, the rooks of black. So here we can say that this position is better for white. Now let's have a look, because we mostly think that opening the position is better for the player who has the two bishops, because then we have more space for the bishop to use. So black plays d5 here, but it doesn't really work out. White continues the bishop to g5, and now suddenly black is starting to get into trouble. He played here the move h6, attacking the bishop on g5, but white can now win material in a forcing line. He plays e takes d5, attacking the bishop on e6, and after knight takes d5 everything looks to be safe, but bishop takes e7 followed, and here black resigned, since it's not possible to prevent to lose material. But let's have a look at how this happens, because the most logical reply is to retake on e7 with knight, right? So knight takes e7 would have been the most logical idea. The move that then follows is knight takes e6, and what happens here, the knight is attacking the rook on f8, the white queen is attacking the black queen, and the knight on c6 is threatening to take on e7 with check. Now perhaps you think, okay, what about taking on d1? Queen takes d1, trading queens. Well, in that case, first of course we take on e7 with check, and after the king has moved we'll retake the queen, and we have won material. Even if f takes e6, rook takes e6, and there is, f takes e6, rook takes e6, and white is simply winning. Let's have again a look, because this looks like a very sudden end. Bishop takes e7. What are other possibilities? Well, if knight takes e7 and knight takes e6, and here we move away the queen, queen to b7, well, easy. Knight takes e7 check, queen takes e7, and then we take the rook. So after queen takes f8, again we have won material. So there's really no way to prevent this with black. Now if the queen is moved away, well, then it's really simple, because we have taken a piece on e7 without being recaptured. So even we take now on f8. So there is no way to prevent that. Now, where was exactly the mistake then? That's something interesting to investigate. Let's have a look. Was it perhaps taking on d5 here, this move? What if black would have taken the bishop? H takes g5. In that case, white takes on e6, attacking the queen. If f takes e6, now knight takes e6 is similar to what the line that we just saw in the game. Also here, if the queens are traded, first white takes on e7 with check, and after the king moves, then we retake on d1. And moving by the way, the king to f7 is not an option, because knight takes g5 check, the knight on e7 is defended, so that's not changing anything. So that means that here taking the bishop on g5 is also not a solution. Let's go back one move more. Was it perhaps h6 the wrong move? Was it perhaps an idea to move here the bishop away from e7 so we don't have this knight takes e7 check? Let's see. If bishop to d8, then what happens is that white can advance this pawn now to e5, and that can become dangerous. Pawn to e5. This knight has almost nowhere to go. If it goes to e4, then bishop takes d8, rook takes d8, knight takes d8, rook takes d8, and white has won the exchange. So white can continue here simply trading pieces. Knight takes e6, and it's not very difficult to continue this game in a favorable way with white. This knight looks very well placed, but it's at a certain moment it can be chased away with f3, and white has the power of the c file. It can use his pieces on the c file later and win the game. So this is also not a solution. That means that actually even before this a mistake must have been made, and I'm thinking that it was here after d5. I think that d5 was the decisive mistake. Well, I told you when we reached this position that I find the white position superior, and that is true. These two knights are very strong, but actually d5 makes it much faster how white wins with this bishop to g5 idea. Actually, black gradually the position became less and less good for black. It became worse and worse slowly, and it started with this actually very interesting idea of white to sacrifice this pawn with b4, and then combine the idea of using the c6 square with also breaking the center open and use the other knight to support c6. These are really high level plans that white used, and perhaps this can encourage us, the amateurs, to think a bit deeper in our own games and see if we can combine all these different motives and aspects in the plans that we make. But I must tell you, this is really high level chess. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time on YouTube.